Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to begin the memorial service portion for Fern Bomchill Davis. Rabbi Shoshana Conover and Cantor Shira Ben David will be officiating. We ask everybody now to take a moment to be sure that your cell phones or any noise-making devices are turned to the off or silent mode. And we welcome those of you who are joining us online.
Like some of you, I knew Fern before I knew Fern. I knew that she was as smart as they come. I knew she was fierce. I knew that she cared about mentoring young people. I knew that she had a big heart, like a sabra, like a cactus, where on the surface, tough, inside, soft, wonderful. I knew all of this because I had heard this before I set foot at Temple Sholem as a new rabbi. I heard all of this 14 years ago from my sister-in-law, who lived in Tucson, Arizona, but who had met Fern when she was the national president of the Federal Bar Association. And in this huge conference, she took time for this new young lawyer, my sister-in-law, to spend time with her, to talk with her, to listen to all of her insecurities. And there was Fern assuring her, telling her to believe in herself, giving her the confidence that she couldn't find at first. But with Fern, how can you not trust her? And so, before I even knew Fern, I knew Fern. And when I came to Temple Sholem, that first High Holy Days, Fern marched right up to me, introduced herself, and I knew from then on, I was in the right place. Fern, as good as they come, and tough and smart, and oh, how she cared about her family, and oh, how she loved her friends, and how she helped us grow. So today we come here to remember her. Now, last night, with that huge storm, I couldn't help but recall a Talmudic story, a story from the Talmud, about the Heavenly Tribunal and the 7 questions that were asked in the heavenly court. Fern knows her way around a courtroom. Need I tell you this? So I could imagine that there she was in that heavenly court, and while they thought they were going to ask her some questions, she was going to turn it on to them. The questions that traditionally are asked, there's 7 of them. Were you honest in business? Fern would say, was I honest? I helped people learn how to be honest in business. Did you make time for studying Torah? Are you kidding me? There was not going to be a treatise anywhere that she wouldn't read. Did you leave a lasting legacy here? Oh, did she try? And how many of us here are her lasting legacy, knowing that we were nurtured and that we grew because of her? Were you hopeful? Well, Fern might reply, what, with my life, you think that I'm hopeful? With my losses, should I be hopeful? But somehow Fern would still be hopeful, especially if she was in charge. She'd be hopeful because she'd know it'd go right. Did you seek wisdom and learn to discern what's true and what's false? seek wisdom. She taught wisdom. Discern what's true and false. How many of us here learned from her what we thought was false was true, and what we thought was true was false? She showed us what discernment looked like and how we could learn. And that last question that was asked in that heavenly court, have you been true to yourself? Fern would not be anything but true to herself. Smart and confident, wise, good. She'd be hard on us, but by being hard on us, she made us better. She loved fiercely. And so last night in that storm with that heavenly tribunal going on above us, I could imagine that Fern, while she did not want to leave this world, well, she knew she made a lasting legacy here. And that's what we remember, because we did not want to be here on this day. We don't want to be remembering Fern. We want to be here with Fern. And so we look to the Psalms to find some hope, some solace. And we start with Psalm 23 that assures us that even as we walk through the valley of death, we are not alone. And it doesn't say that we walk in the valley of the shadow of death. We walk through it. So all of us who are gathered here today, we are walking through together, treasuring the memory of Fern Bomchill Davis.
Adonai roi lo echsar bino dashayar b'tzeini al mei menuchot yanaleini nafshi sholev yeshovim yancheini v'maglei tzedek leman shmo gam ki elech begei tzal mavet lo ira ki ata imadi shivtecha mishantecha hema yanachamuni shivtecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni Taroch lefanai, shulchan neged sorerai, deshanti vashemen roshi kosi revaya. Yudafuni kol yamei hayai v'shavti b'veit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar, Adonai roi lo echsar.
I invite you to join me in the translation of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There were many ways in which we referred to Fern. She treasured these titles: beloved wife of the late Samuel B. Davis, dear sister of Albert Bomchill and the late William Bomchill, cherished aunt of Eugene Bomchill, Aline Eliasaph, Jeff Bomchill, Mark Bomchill, and Renee Bomchill, as well as their spouses, Daniel, Jackie, and Judy. And a great aunt, and in some ways an adopted grandmother to her 9 nieces and nephews. But the title she cherished most, even above attorney, loving mother of the late Bradley Benton Davis. Today, we will hear from some of her family members. We'll hear from her niece, Aline Eliasaph, representing Mayor Brown and the many attorneys whom she mentored, Britt Miller, as well as one of her college roommates, Barbara Cooperman, all of whom will be speaking. Elaine, we invite you to come up first.
Hi, I'm Aline. I'm standing here somewhat in disbelief that we're having a memorial service for Fern. It's not that I was in denial about her health crisis or the severity of it. It's that it didn't fit into my mental construct of who Fern was. Fern has always been superhuman, a solid warrior. She knew how to fight, and losing was not in her DNA. She was a champion at verbal sparring. No one ever beat her, especially me. I can honestly say, and I'm not bragging, I never won an argument with Fern. My joke to her was always about my second career as an expert witness, since I spent the bulk of my adult life under cross-examination. She is the strongest, smartest, and most capable woman I had ever met. We are 17 years apart in age. She was barely an adult when I was born. I remember her visiting us, always making an effort to be in our lives. And even as a small child, I wanted to emulate her. I spent random weekends at her apartment in the Hemingway house, eating lunch at the movable feast. I remember the excitement of being able to look at the zoo and Lake Michigan from her apartment. As a kid, she was the only female I knew that had a big job other than Mary Tyler Moore. And Fern was so much cooler than Mary Tyler Moore. She had her own office. Fern was the youngest of my grandparents, Evelyn and Daniel's 3 children. My father, of blessed memory, was the oldest, followed by Albert, and then Fern. I suspect by the time Fern was born, my grandparents were tired. It would be my guess she was also a force to be reckoned with from the word go. My grandparents gave her opportunity and privilege, and she soared. I was told they even sold their house on Fargo Avenue in East Rogers Park to move to Timber Ridge so Fern could go to Evanston Township High School. She graduated with honors, went to the University of Michigan, got her BA in 1969, and received her JD from the University of Chicago in 1972. She immediately started as an associate at Mayer Brown and Platt. Along her journey, Fern met Sam Davis, a handsome, well-decorated MBA and Vietnam vet who swept our superwomen off her feet. She married him in a gorgeous fairy tale wedding on her birthday in 1978. In 1979, she was promoted to partner, actually one of the first female partners at Mayer Brown. And in 1980, she was promoted to mother to Bradley Davis. Fern was a working mom before maternity leave was a mandate and childcare was accessible. In 1980, it was rare to find a mom who climbed the corporate ladder as well as worked, as well as raised a family. Fern broke glass ceilings before that term was even coined. In 1982, they moved into their house on Concord Lane, and everything was on track for a beautiful life until it wasn't. Sam, like many Vietnam vets who were exposed to the neurotoxin Agent Orange, developed sarcomas and neurofibromas, which in a short time took his life. Fernie buried her husband in 1983 and in some ways buried herself into her work and focused her energy on my sweet cousin, Brad. Shortly after I moved to Chicago, Brad was 10 years old, and he pulled me aside to show me this green heart necklace he had purchased for Fern for Mother's Day. Apparently, the necklace was more than the money he had saved, so Brad bartered an agreement to shovel snow so he could afford the necklace and pay the difference. He was so proud of himself for the barter and his negotiation skills. She loved that necklace, wore it all the time, and shared that story proudly. Brad launched into his adulthood at Emory University, working towards his BA. And as we all learned later, Agent Orange didn't only affect the people who were exposed to it, it passed through the genetic material and exposed the next generation. Brad was diagnosed with a neurofibroma brain tumor and passed away at 20 years old, 6 weeks after Fern lost her older brother, my father. Fern soldiered on. She worked hard, she traveled, she played tennis, she went to theater, Bears games, and spent time with friends. She was promoted to grandma de facto to my 3 kids, Sivan, Tara, and Idan, whom she spoiled, and they adored her. Fernie sat through school assemblies, swim meets, dance recitals, taekwondo belt promotions. She was mandated to attend birthday parties and graduations. One of my favorite Fernie stories came from a visit to Solomon Schechter Day School. She was invited to a school assembly for Tara. The teacher walked up to Tara and Fern and said, "Is this your grandmother?" And Tara said, "No, this is my Fernie." The teacher later asked me, "What is a Fernie?" To which I responded, "Nobody you want to cross." To speak about her as a family member is to express my gratitude. She was our commander-in-chief, whether we liked it or not. Fernie was always in charge, except when it came to picking restaurants. She was the family matriarch, keeping everyone connected and bonded. She made sure we stayed in touch and coached us through family drama as the peacemaker. She held us to high standards, but had an incredible ability to forgive or ignore bad behavior. Family rifts were unacceptable. She was the 24-hour crisis call center because she never slept, and no matter what crisis it was, she was able to absolve it. She was our song leader, our conductor, and our collective consciousness. She was a friend, our legal counsel, our biggest critic, and our cheerleader. She was tough on the people she loved. She apparently loved me a lot. In more ways than I can articulate, she was my rock and my business consultant. Fernie set up my practice. In the last several months of her life, I made a point of spending time with her on the weekends. She liked it when I spoke about my work and told her about my clients, the clients I worked for, and the complexity of their situations. She enjoyed hearing about how I spent my days and giving her opinion on how I could do it better. When it became clear to both of us that even Superwoman is vulnerable to kryptonite, I remember she looked at me straight in the eye and told me there's a likelihood she wasn't going to win this fight with cancer, and that I better not screw up by giving free advice or counsel without a signed contract. She never really lost her battle with cancer. She negotiated, she litigated, and eventually she reached a settlement agreement. It was my hope that she floated into the arms of Sam and Brad and has been able to reunite with her parents. In final analysis, maybe the only ones who lost is us. She just traded in her cape for a set of wings. It's my hope we honor her life by living well, by holding her values of integrity, honesty, and ethics. Please give charity in her name. Remember her in our hearts and let her legacy live on through our actions. Fernie, I love you and I will miss you forever. I just want to end by acknowledging a few angels in this room. Sonia, you have been amazing to my aunt. Thank you for taking care of her. Thank you for tolerating her. And thank you for everything you did. Colleen, Susan, and Shauna, thank you for being such great friends to Fern. And in the last few weeks, thank you for being the rock beneath my feet. Lastly, Al, you may win the award for the greatest brother on earth. And I know you came in for Fern, but really you showed up for both of us. Jackie, thank you for the beautiful montage. And Jeff and Renee, you guys have been so solid. Thank you.
And I'll invite Britt Miller to come forward. Thank you so much, Britt. I know that you're carrying a lot of people on your shoulders as you do this now, so thank you. And Aline, that was just beautiful. Even Fern would have loved it.
People talk about their work wives and their work husbands. I had a work mom, and her name was Fern Bomchill. During her nearly 50-year career at Mayor Brown, Fern was a lot of things to a lot of people: partner, mentor, colleague, role model, advocate, counselor, teacher, editor, conscience, confidant, and friend. As she used to remind me on a fairly regular basis, Fern joined the firm before I was even born, joining the firm in 1972 following her graduation from the University of Chicago. As you would expect, Fern excelled and was promoted to partner in 1979 as one of the first women at the firm promoted to partner. Fern's practice ran the gamut of commercial litigation: breach of contract, business torts, bankruptcy, environmental, unfair competition, you name it, Fern probably litigated it. She was not only a recognized trial lawyer, but a respected and much sought after mediator. Early on, Fern took on a number of high-profile special appointments, including acting Associate General Counsel for Continental Bank in the mid-'80s. Later in her career, she lectured, wrote, and advised clients and colleagues alike on legal ethics, a topic near and dear to her heart. She was a keen listener whom clients and colleagues relied on for crucial advice. In short, Fern did it all. I remember one of the very first cases I did with Fern. I was a first-year associate. Aurelia Puczynski, then clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County, had purchased a new computer system to manage the county court records. The problem was that she'd failed to get the Cook County Board to sign off on it before she signed the contract. I initially told Fern that I was too busy, but she wore me down. And I'm so very glad she did, because it turned into a masterclass on civil litigation. I'd never written a complaint, never taken a deposition, never drafted any discovery responses. I was literally months into my career as a lawyer, and I was the only associate on the case. Fern was infinitely patient and incredibly supportive, taking the time to review everything I wrote, and armed with her ever-present number 2 pencil, provided meaningful edits and feedback. She never got exasperated, always made time for my questions, and there were a lot of them, taught me a lot about what it means to be a fierce but fair advocate. To this day, particularly when I'm working with our younger associates, I often ask myself, what would Fern do? In 2011, Fern was elected as the national president of the Federal Bar Association, an organization she was a member of for almost 30 years. For those of you that aren't lawyers, the FBA is an association of private and governmental lawyers and judges practicing in the federal court system. It has some 19,000 members, including 1,500 federal judges. And Fern, of course, was in charge of all of them. I'm told that following her installation as president, she and other senior FBA officials had lunch with the US Supreme Court, who at the time was comprised of Chief Justice Roberts and Justices Alito, Breyer, Ginsburg, Kagan, Kennedy, Scalia, Sotomayor, and Thomas. And although you might think that there were more obvious candidates for Fern to gravitate towards, I'm told that she and Justice Thomas spent a significant portion of lunch laughing and talking about what one can only begin to guess, and that Justice Thomas gave her a private tour of the court and his chambers. But that was Fern. She could relate to and find common ground with anyone and everyone. In 2002, Fern took on the role of claims counsel for the firm, a role that she held through her retirement from the partnership in 2018 and into her senior counsel role with the firm. She remained senior counsel until her passing. She was literally the perfect person for the job. Claims counsel, as you might expect, handles claims against the firm. So people would often have to walk into her office seeking out her guidance on situations that were less than ideal. But Fern handled each interaction with grace and aplomb, while instilling in every person involved a confidence that Fern had their back and was going to fight for them. But while Fern's legal accomplishments were many and her impact deep, it was her warmth and authenticity and her seemingly unlimited capacity for caring and compassion that is her legacy at Mayor Brown. Since her passing, a number of current and former Mayor Browners have reached out to share their thoughts and memories of Fern, and I'd like to share just a few of them with you. Every group of people working together, including law firms, has people within it who embody the organization's ideals and values in everything they do. There can be no doubt that for Mayor Brown, Fern stood out as one of those people. It is no overstatement that Fern's greatest gift to the firm was her embodiment of the strength of the human spirit and her living a life of great accomplishment and joy in the face of all that life can throw at you. Fern cared deeply about Mayor Brown. She was always willing to help a colleague, going way above and beyond to lend a hand. She was available at night, on the weekends, and on vacation. If someone at Mayor Brown had a problem or needed help, she was there without question. Fern cared deeply about the practice of law, about the firm, and about all of the people she worked with. She made the firm a better place and me a better lawyer. In the movie, a version of Fern's life, she could have been played by Rosalind Russell. Indomitable, able to outwit any foe, and hugely fun and funny. Regardless of how busy Fern was, and she was always busy, she would always find time to listen and provide her invaluable advice, whether it was on a complex legal issue that she simplified to its basic elements, or on a personal matter where her empathy was at the forefront. When you were with her, she always made you feel that you were the only person that mattered in that moment. Fern was a pioneer. She was only one of a handful of female litigators at Mayor Brown in the 1970s. For decades, Fern served as a role model for young litigators, male and female. She was smart and confident, tough and resolute when she needed to be, honest and true. And despite the tragedies she suffered, Fern always lit up a room. Every room that she entered, she had her trademark smile on her face, and she was ready with a laugh, charming friend and foe alike. As I said at the outset, Fern Bomchill was my work mom. She was that and so many other things to so many people at Mayor Brown. And so I say on behalf of all of them, thanks, Mom, for everything. You are loved and will be greatly missed.
Britt, she would have been so proud. Thank you. Barbara.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Barbara Huberman Reynolds. I live in Ann Arbor. Fern Bomchill Davis and I shared a close friendship for almost 57 years. I'm honored to speak today about a very important aspect of Fern's life, her valued friendships. Fern was born on February 25th, 1948, and died on June 11th, 2022. Between those important dates, Fern embraced life and her many experiences with the greatest energy and commitment. She embraced everyone she knew, and she was tightly embraced in return by a vast network of friends everywhere. Hundreds of people in Chicago and elsewhere can honestly claim to be on Fern's long, long list of friends. A few days ago, our friend Sherry wrote me a note about Fern. In part, it said, I once asked Fern how one person could have so many best friends at the same time. I know the answer now. All who are present today knew Fern in a particular context, or perhaps in several contexts, as a member of her beloved extended family, as a professional colleague, or as a social friend. I want to acknowledge the importance to Fern of many people who are here this afternoon. Her wonderful tennis group and travel companions of the past 20 years, with whom she enjoyed travel adventures all over the world. Her bridge group friends, her book club friends, her investment club friends, her movie club friends, neighbors she met while walking her dog, who later became her friends along with their dogs, whose names she knew. Friends with whom she attended concerts and plays, and those she met regularly for dinner. Brad's friends and their parents with whom she kept in touch, old friends of Sam's. Special acknowledgement must be given to those who drove Fern to medical appointments for more than a year. To both Susan and Colleen, friends who were always available and helpful throughout Fern's long illness, along with her niece Aline. To Sonia, a reliable and loyal presence in Fern's life for many years. And to her brother Albert, who traveled from Texas to spend Fern's last days with her. I hope I did not exclude anyone who belongs on this list. Fern always had a very busy, active social life, but especially after Brad died in December 2000. She became so busy that it was often hard to reach her by phone until late at night or to schedule a weekend visit with her. My friendship with Fern began on our first day as undergraduate students at the University of Michigan in late August 1965. Fern was 17 years old. When I say that, it seems to me that it was a lifetime ago, and I know that's true because neither she nor I required reading glasses. In the late afternoon, we were both standing at the curb outside South Quad, the new U of M dorm, saying goodbye to our parents. I noticed that Fern's parents had Illinois plates on their car, and I thought she might be alone after they drove off. I had two good high school friends who were waiting for me in the dorm. Fern and I ended up on the elevator together. We exchanged names and quickly established that we had been assigned to rooms on the same hall on the 7th floor. I immediately introduced Fern to my high school friends, and they immediately asked her to join us for dinner that night, our first night in Ann Arbor. Quickly, a tight group of 5 friends formed on our 7th floor hall in South Quad. That number increased to 6 the next year when Joanne Parr transferred to U of M from Michigan State. Throughout our 4 years as students, we all lived together in various locations, first in the dorm, then in a sorority house, and finally in apartments in a building at 525 Walnut. Fern was always the group's official night owl. I signed up for 8 a.m. classes and was in bed early every night. What was Fern doing until the middle of the night? We all wondered. No one knew for sure, but she seemed to attend all of her classes and got straight A's every year. This morning, I remembered that Fern liked to study at the law school library almost every night. Was she there trying to meet male law students? Probably. My life was a lot less complicated. I studied at the undergraduate library. No dressing up and no makeup were required there. I once told Fern that we were like ships passing in the night, but our friendship endured despite our very different schedules. Of the group of 6 U of M friends, only one other is here today, Susan Wexler. Sherry and Joanne are in Michigan. Our friend Judy died almost 7 years ago. After graduation in 1969, the 6 of us remained in close contact. For years, we exchanged visits in both Chicago and in Michigan. We celebrated life events together, weddings, bar mitzvahs, including Brad's, bridal showers, birthdays, the birth of grandchildren. For many summers until 2020, the group traveled to northern Michigan, where I have a cottage. We spent happy weekends there, shopping, eating out, drinking wine on my deck, talking, and just having fun together. Once my next door neighbor, who was on her deck, called to ask me if she could come over to join in our obviously very good time. Unfortunately, the years after college also brought sad events for each of us. The loss of one parent or both, including Fern's wonderful mother and father, Evelyn and Daniel. But the saddest events by far were the tragic deaths of Fern's beloved husband, Sam Davis, when he was 35, and then the death of her only child, Brad, when he was 20 in 2000. These tragic losses forever shaped Fern's future and her relationships. Her tennis group, her traveling companions, many other club friends became her new family. Her brother Albert and her extended family of nieces and nephews and their children assumed even more importance to her. My 2 daughters, who were both living in Chicago, adopted Fern, and she became their Chicago mom. She was now a permanent part of our family gatherings for birthdays, Mother's Days, and many holidays. Beautiful gifts were always exchanged. Fern's gifts were always carefully selected for each of us, even after she became ill. After Sam's death, when Brad was not yet 4 years old, Fern and I spent a lot of time together. We were both single mothers raising young children alone. Our children, Amy, Lauren, and Brad, became close. They loved to be together, playing games at Fern's house, eating at restaurants, and sometimes going on short trips. Lauren and Amy still talk about many happy times they spent with Brad. One very memorable dinner took place at a Chinese restaurant where Brad began to laugh so hard at the name of the restaurant, House of Dong Wong, that he tipped over backwards in his chair and landed on the floor. I remember that lots of water then spilled from the table onto the floor, leaving Brad in stitches before he got up. Fern was not amused. Last night, my daughter Lauren reminded me that riding in the car with Fern to a restaurant was a form of entertainment in itself. It usually involved a lot of honking, swearing, gesturing, general impatience with everyone else on the road. but Fern always got us to our destination very quickly. Brad would have been 42 years old a few days ago on June 10th. Sadly, Fern did not celebrate his graduation from college. She did not see him establish a career or marry or become a father. But it's very important to know this about Fern. Despite her huge loss and continued personal pain, which her friends recognized, she never allowed her own feelings to interfere with the joy and happiness of others. She was always a full participant as her friends celebrated their family events. Fern's calendar was constantly filled with the dates of bridal showers she was hosting and the countless weddings she was invited to attend all over the country. Her closet was full of beautiful clothes that she had selected for these events. I'm certain that many who are here today received Fern's standard baby gift, a beautiful wooden step stool with a new grandchild's name engraved on the top in colorful letters. She was always thoughtful and generous. So, dear Fern, we are sadly assembled here to say goodbye. We will always remember and honor your many accomplishments. We thank you for the love and joy you brought to each of us. We promise to keep you alive in our heads and in our hearts. Your incredible strength and courage and your beautiful smile will never be forgotten. I'm not a religious person, but since June 11, I have been praying that you are now at peace and finally with Sam and Brad.
One last description of Barbara, not of Barbara. Barbara, you don't need no more description. You shared such beautiful memories. Thank you. One more description of Fern. And I take it from this week's Torah portion, where there's the strangest description that, of course, fits Fern. The beginning of the Torah portion, God first instructs Moses to then instruct Aaron about the sanctuary to make sure that the menorah is lit properly. But it doesn't say just to light the menorah. This is what it says in the Hebrew. Ba'alotecha et hanerot el mul pnei hamenorah, which means lift the lights that are opposite the face of the menorah. Now that seems like a very strange instruction. Lift the lights that are opposite the menorah. What does that mean? I think what it's trying to say to us, it's not enough to kindle light. What you have to do is you have to see where the light reflects and lift that constantly. We all are lucky enough, even as brokenhearted as we are, to be great reflections of Fern's light. So what do we do now? We lift that light. The way that she was so brilliant in school, somehow in Aline's description, you left out the fact that she might have had her parents move all the way to Evanston from Chicago to get out from under the reputations of her older brothers, William and Al, who, let's just say, did not necessarily leave a great legacy of brilliance in their school. And the way in which she was not only brilliant, but she used that brilliance to bring justice to this world. And more than that, to raise people in her light to be able to see the way in which they could bring more justice to this world. Courtrooms are sacred places because that's where we see that justice can actually prevail. And she wanted to make sure that there were as many litigators and lawyers who cared as much about justice and ethics as she did. And boy, did we ever, because she required that. So when we turn toward justice, when we bring more goodness into this world through our professions, we lift her light. when we mentor young people, when we make sure that they understand how much they matter, we lift Fern's light. And certainly, when we bring family together, the way that she used to on Thanksgivings, it didn't matter that she couldn't cook. It didn't matter that more than once the fire department came to put something out. It didn't matter, it brought the family together. When we bring family together, we lift her light. Not only did she do that on Thanksgiving, in the summers in Michigan, she would rent a 10-room house in order to make sure that all of the people in her family could come. And so she made sure that family, everybody understood that they mattered so much to her. She showed up for family. I don't know that she really loved American Dolls, but certainly her grandnieces thought she did. She would bring you to the spa. She would bring you to those things that would make you happy because she wanted to have that bond with you. She showed up to games because she wanted that time with you. She made an impact. When we show up for family, we lift the light of our Fern. And I just want to say that when we enjoy beauty, when we appreciate the world, not for what it is, but for what it can be, when we truly appreciate what's around us, well, that is too how we lift her light. She had high standards, so we have to lift ourselves to be able to be in her light. I'll conclude with this. Up until the very end, Fern was surrounded by people who loved her. That was her whole life. We all marched to the way that she beat her drum because she wouldn't have it any other way. But somehow we loved her rhythm. We loved what she brought to this world. We loved the way that she made us better, that she recognized what we could be capable of, and she'd bring it out in us. So I'll say that the way that she made us laugh, the way that sometimes she made us cry, the way that she took time for all of us, we treasure that. And that's the way that we were once a reflection of her light. And as we live the way that she did at her very best, we continue to lift the light of our beloved Fern. In that way, I invite you now, please rise as we pray that her soul is bound up in everlasting light.
El male rachamim shochen bamromim המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה אם כראשים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת חיה פגל של הלכה לעולמה ועל הרחמים יסיריה בסתר כנפל לעולמים ויתרור החיים את נשמתה הרוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Fern Bomchill Davis, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
We join together in Kaddish Yatom, in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divarach cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei olmaya, v'yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yit hadar, v'yit alev, v'yit halal, shemei d'kudusha b'richu. Ve'ela min kol, birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran mi'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom v'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen.
Rabbi? Following the service here, everyone is invited to the Betty Port Hall. The family will be together till 8 p.m. Memorial contributions in her memory to the American Brain Tumor Association, Susan G. Komen, or the Skokie Community Foundation. For those of you who are here, that information is on the service folder. For those of you who are joining us online, you can find that information on the funeral home's website. At this time, I invite everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the family of Fern Bomchill Davis from the chapel. Then we're going to go to the hall right behind the sanctuary, and you may join the family.